Day 6. The instruction. The 6th morning came too quietly. After the rain, the cove should have smelled fresh, washed clean by the weather, but the air that moved through Widow's Cove felt heavy instead. Water still clung to the window panes. The road beyond the house was soft with mud. Down below, the rocks were black and shining where the tide had pulled away, and the old path beneath the eastern side of the house lay dark against the grass. Evelyn came downstairs before the guest had begun to stir. The scraps were still on the table beside the ledger, their edges curled, their ink darkened in the places where it had seemed pale the day before. The words, "Do not let it go dark," held her attention the longest. They had changed overnight. She was certain of it, and by then she no longer needed Mabel to confirm what she already knew. The warning had stopped behaving like a memory. Aunt Mabel entered the hall a few minutes later, already dressed, with her hair pinned more severely than usual, and her face set in the way it was when there was work to do. She looked first at Evelyn, then at the scraps, and finally toward the seaward windows, where the morning light had done little to lift the dimness from the room. "I should have looked sooner," she said. Evelyn followed her to the small room off the kitchen, where Aunt Mabel kept things she did not often use but could not bring herself to throw away. There were boxes of old receipts, folded table linens, and a cracked sugar bowl, bundles of letters tied with ribbon, and a sewing box that had belonged to Aunt Mabel's mother. It was the last thing her aunt took down from the shelf. The sewing box was dark wood, worn smooth where hands had opened and closed it over the many years. Inside were the ordinary remains of mending: black thread, shirt buttons, a paper pack of needles, the length of a faded ribbon, 2 thimbles nestled in a corner. Aunt Mabel lifted the tray from inside the box and stopped. Beneath it lay an envelope. The paper had yellowed with age. The wax seal had gone so dry that it broke apart as soon as Aunt Mabel touched it. For a moment, she only held the envelope, staring at it as if the years between herself and her mother had grown suddenly thin. "I opened this box 100 times," she said. "This was never here." But neither of them believed that, not fully anymore. Evelyn unfolded the paper inside. Unlike the scraps, this had not been torn. Unlike the strip in the ledger, it had not been tucked into another record and left to disguise itself as if something accidental. It had been kept. The writing was faded, but plain enough to read, written in a steady hand that did not tremble or explain itself. "When the warning returns, the shore light must be kept. It is not a beacon for vessels. It is not to guide men home. It is for the cove. Tend it before dusk. Keep it through the night. Never let it go dark while the signs remain." Evelyn read the words once in silence and then again aloud. The room seemed smaller when she finished. There was no story written beneath the instructions, no account of what first happened at Widow's Cove, no name for whatever waited beyond the rocks, no description of a shape seen in the fog or a voice heard beneath the tide. The paper did not try to frighten them, and somehow that made it worse. It had the plainness of a household rule, something known well enough that it did not need to defend itself. Aunt Mabel sank into the chair beside the shelf. "My mother knew," she said. Evelyn looked at the page again. She must have. "She let me think it was only an old saying, something her mother had said, something foolish people held on to because the coast gives them too much time to imagine things in the dark." "Did she believe that?" Evelyn asked. Aunt Mabel's eyes stayed on the envelope. "No, I think she wanted me to." Neither of them spoke for a while after that. In the kitchen, beyond the door, the house began to wake in ordinary ways. A stove door opened, dishes shifted, someone laughed softly at the back stairs, not knowing that the morning had changed. That was how the house held itself together. Evelyn thought with breakfast and laundry and polite voices while something older waited underneath. At last Aunt Mabel rose. If it says to tend it before dusk, then we do not wait until dusk. They gathered what they could. The rusted fitting was cleaned as best as it could be cleaned. It would never look new, but beneath the corrosion there was still enough shape to prove its purpose. Aunt Mabel found an old lantern in the shed, dented on one side and clouded with dust. Evelyn washed the glass and trimmed a wick and filled the base with oil while her aunt stood beside the table reading the instructions again and again, as if some hidden meaning might appear between the lines. None did. The meaning was already clear enough. By late afternoon they carried everything down the old path beneath the eastern side of the house. The ground was soft from the rain, and more than once Evelyn had to steady herself against the slope. Aunt Mabel moved slowly, but with the stubbornness that made Evelyn think of every lamp her aunt had lit over the years without knowing exactly why she feared leaving the house dark. The map led them to the place near the rocks. Now that Evelyn knew where to look, she could see the signs of it. 2 old holes marked the flat stone, dark with age and half filled with grit. A line of weathered wood, almost entirely rotted away, remained pressed into the earth nearby. It was not much. It was hardly anything, but it was enough. The place had not vanished. It had only been neglected long enough to look like part of the shore. Aunt Mabel knelt with difficulty and fitted the lantern as securely as she could. Evelyn held the instructions paper folded in her hand, though she no longer needed to look at it. The words had settled in her mind with a certainty that felt heavier each time she repeated them to herself. Tend it before dusk. Keep it through the night. Never let it go dark while the signs remain. The air shifted as the sun lowered behind the clouds. Not a wind exactly, but a pressure, the kind that came before storms, though no storm was gathering. The sea seemed to darken all at once. The rocks below the house took on a slick black shine. For a moment Evelyn thought she heard faint sound of glass again. Not from the lantern in Aunt Mabel's hands, but from somewhere further down among the stones. Aunt Mabel heard it too. Hurry, she said. Evelyn struck the match. The first flame died. She cut the second carefully, shielding it from the damp air, and touched it to the wick. For one breath, the lantern did nothing. Then the flame caught, small and gold, shivering behind the glass before it steadied. Neither of them moved. The light was not large. It did not flood the shore or reach far across the water. It simply burned in the place marked on the old map, fixed above the rocks where the warning had led them. Behind them, the house stood gray against the evening. Before them, the cove held its dark, and for the first time since the scraps had begun to appear, the air seemed to pause, as if whatever had been pushing closer had found the boundary again and stopped just beyond it. Aunt Mabel let out a breath Evelyn had not realized she was holding. It was never meant to go dark, she said. Evelyn looked at the lantern, then the water moving below it. The instructions had told them what to do, and they had done it, but the paper had not told them what would happen if the light failed. It had not told them what the cove warned against, or why anyone ever believed a single flame could hold it back. Those answers remained beyond the rocks, for now there was only the light and the long night still ahead. As day 6 ends, we find out that Aunt Mabel's mother knew about the warning, and the 2 women set off to do what was told in the letter. To not let the lantern go dark. To not let it die out, and that it was never meant for ships. It was meant for the Cove. Come back tomorrow as we find out, did the light hold? Did it keep whatever is off the shore back? And keep the ladies safe, along with their guest. Come back tomorrow for the final chapter of The House at Widow's Cove. And until then, y'all take care.